Next, we'll hear how outdoor living trends are likely to influence consumers' plant purchases from Phil Steinhauer, CEO and landscape architect at Designscapes, Colorado. Phil's philosophy is that landscape construction is a way to convey taste and style. Whether your garden is classic in design or you take an innovative approach, your landscape is not something you buy, you have to create it. Behind the work of Phil Steinhauer and the design team at Designscapes, Colorado is character, heart, and above all, a deep appreciation for the land. Phil approaches design to fit the local environment while blending the home and garden together. Thanks for your time today, Phil.
What a pleasure it is to be asked by Danziger to talk about trends in our landscape industry. I'm here with Phil Steinhauer. He's been owner and landscape architect of Designscapes Colorado for almost 30 years now. So Phil, tell me, what trends have you been seeing within our industry this year?
You know, probably the biggest trend, Marissa, is that 16 million people have taken up gardening this year, and that same study found that actually they're spending more than 2 hours a day in their landscape. So I think that's significant when you look at, a trend, and we're definitely seeing it in our business. We've had record calls coming in for people requesting professional services, and I think that's partly because of people really realize the health benefit, both mental and physical, that landscaping can provide. And then they also are looking at it from an investment in their property values.
So with that being said, how important is it for you to stay on top of these trends?
I think it's really important, one, to stay relevant, and then also be on top of these trends on what our clients are asking for, so that I can give them, informed decisions on their designs.
Right. So what are people looking for?
It's funny. I would say that gardening now has really come, people are really looking for gardens with a purpose. And I think what I mean by that is people are very specific in their needs, whether it's these outdoor rooms that we're creating, because they're also doubling as offices, as places where families are cooking outdoors a lot more now, dining al fresco. People are also then using these for recreation, and I don't think that necessarily backyards are just for swing sets and football anymore. We're really seeing that homeowners are looking for places of all ages, recreational games, whether it's badminton, whether it's pickleball, bocce ball. All of these family games are really important, I think, now. And I think more than ever, we're seeing on top of all that, swimming pools really have become very popular. And I think what I guess I would attribute that trend to is with people traveling less, I think we're finding that people are building these resorts in their own backyard. And that doesn't necessarily, from really big jobs to small jobs. I think people are just looking to utilize their gardens, kind of every square inch of their yards. They want it all. They want a vegetable garden. They want a place to entertain. They want a fire pit or an outdoor fireplace. So all of these things have become really important to the landscape.
That sounds awesome. So with that, it sounds kind of complicated, like there might be a lot of moving parts. So how does this what is the process, I want to say?
Well, I think more than ever what we're seeing is that we're getting involved way sooner than normal. Landscape has really come to the forefront because of these things that I just mentioned. So we're working with architects and interior designers because it's so important that these outdoor spaces flow to the interior spaces and vice versa, that these interior spaces that are landscape frame the views, whether it's a swimming pool or an outdoor patio. So these views and the connection between the two are really important. And that goes from everything from choosing materials so that the materials that are inside flow to the outside, as well as color schemes. Even the softening of these areas with flowers and plants. We're seeing a lot of green walls. We're seeing a lot of patio planters, whether it be for color, whether it be for vegetables. but these spaces are no longer sterile. They really are incorporating the landscape and really bringing and surrounding these spaces with the landscape.
So it sounds like plants are really important to these outdoor living spaces, and I've noticed that in photographing our work.
Plants are really important. In fact, the planting design is really the canvas that we have to work with, and plants are our palette. And really, if you really think about it, landscape design is a visual art, so texture and color and size and shape are really important. And one of the challenges we have as landscape designers and architects is really these things all grow. So, it looks different in winter than it does in summer. It also looks different 5 years from now than when I put it in, next week. So that's really how important the plants are to softening these spaces and really creating an outdoor living environment. So I would say it's one of the most important things.
Right. And one thing I've noticed from our sales team, a lot of homeowners are asking for their plants to come in larger sizes because they want that instant gratification. Is that accurate?
Oh yeah, I think we're seeing more and more people really want that instant gratification. They're willing to spend money on bigger trees. They want fuller plants. I think the variety of plants that we have to work with now, changes every year with new improved varieties. And I think we're also seeing, we hear the term a lot, low maintenance. So we're seeing a trend to doing easier gardens to care for, things that take care of themselves, things that are drought tolerant, that don't require as much water, that maybe are pest and disease resistant. So I think that kind of follows a trend in everybody's life. We want more time to ourselves, and I think the time that's spent in a garden is wanting to be growing vegetables and doing some of those things. It's not pruning and it's not taking care and weeding. It's more about enjoying that space that you're in.
Right. And speaking of enjoying your time in the garden, can you tell me a little bit more about what are vegetable gardens? What are people seeking in those?
That's funny. That's another big trend that we're seeing more. I think on almost every job I go on now, I'm putting in a vegetable garden. And these aren't just some little square foot gardening. These are big gardens where people are looking, to have a variety of plants. They're really looking more at the heirloom varieties and unusual varieties, like you might see in a gourmet grocery store. Berries and herbs are all, again, being incorporated. I think we're even seeing that same trend in smaller gardens where people have patios or rooftop gardens where they're incorporating vegetables into their flower beds. It creates a more naturalistic feel, but it is also something that people can then utilize and benefit from in their landscape.
Definitely, and I just moved into a new apartment and I have a little balcony, so I'm super excited for next season to plant my own little vegetable garden and just to go out and tend to it and just have fresh food right outside my door, basically. And one of the things I'm very curious, give me a trend that you've seen this last season that you haven't seen before.
I think probably this whole idea of working and staying at home more is probably the biggest trend, is people are enjoying their landscapes, and it's really come to the forefront. And I think, again, if I go back to what I said earlier, it's landscaping with a purpose. People are much more deliberate on what they're asking for, how they're going to use that space than 5-10 years ago.
Okay, Phil, so tell me, I'm sure our audience is wondering, what colors and styles are popular this season?
I think color in any form or any shade has been popular. We are seeing, though, a lot of monochromatic gardens where people just want a blue garden or people just want a white garden. But I think more than anything, I'm seeing lots of color. People are looking for, I think, some brightness in their yards. We've, just come out of the pandemic, and so I think people are looking for a lot of color. And then as far as style, I think I touched on, low maintenance, but really as a designer, I'm working with the architect and interior designer to really pick up, the style of the house, the way the homeowner lives. So there's not really one style that I would say is more significant than another.
So that's really interesting. I think we're all looking to add a little bit of brightness in our lives. So Phil, that is all the time that we have for today. I want to thank you and thank Danziger for letting us do this. Do you have any final words?
Yeah, I think it's been a pleasure. I think we're going to be around, or I'll be around for a Q&A afterwards. So please, if I've touched on something you want some more information on, please feel free to, send in a question.
Awesome.